Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, these days it's those experiential moments that we get to share with other people that we're missing the most. And if you can hear the sound of my voice, then you must be in the seats with once again. As always, my name is Dave Voigt. I am your host, your moderator, your editor, publisher of not only this podcast, but over at intheseats.ca for all your latest and greatest movie reviews and news and books from festivals all across the world and all sorts of good stuff. But also, please don't forget to follow us on social media at In the Seats or at In the Seats with or at it's podcast one. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, please feel free to subscribe at Apple, at Spotify, and at Podomatic. And you can also find everything archived over at YouTube on our YouTube channel. But today we're looking into a festival that actually starts tomorrow. And this festival technically starts in Nova Scotia, but you know, these days, thanks to the technology that is available to us, film festivals seem to be going all across the world. We are talking about the Devour Film Festival. That's a tongue tire. But we talk with founder and executive director Michael Howell and Lia Rinaldo, managing director, just about sort of the origins of the festival, the challenges of programming, making events that, especially now, because it almost feels like we're isolated from everyone, but they get to put all these fantastic, not only food ideas, but food films into the comfort of our own home. And it's not only an important topic, because there are issues like food inequality and other things going on around the world, but it's a fun topic too. And there's a lot of great stuff going on. And if you want to check them out, I would recommend Googling Devour Film Festival, because they're going to have a lot of great online events that anyone all across Canada can take part in. And that's enough of me blabbering. Let's get on with the show.
But obviously, congratulations. This is, I love how you're calling it 9.5 festival, but can you walk me through the origins of Devour? Because, I mean, this feels like the perfect marriage.
Yeah. Well, it was begun in 2009 by me. I've been a chef for 25 years, and I have a restaurant, or had a restaurant here in Wolfville called Tempest. And I am, and Lia is also, we're members of Slow Food International, and we have lots of members across Canada. So this was started in 2009 to be a showcase for slow food, to start talking about how food impacts our lives. And we thought that by showing films that were related to food in some way, and then having dinners, first year at my restaurant, associated with the films, that this was a unique way to have people have more than like dinner theater with movies. Mm-hmm. So we had 1,000 people show up that first year over the weekend. We have a small art repertory cinema here in town that holds 160 people. Wow. It's called the Al Whittle. And my restaurant was around the corner. So my restaurant was full for the weekend. The films attracted about 1,000 people. And very fortuitously, Jason Priestley was here working on a show at the time called Call Me Fitz. So we even had a celebrity kicking around that first year. So this whole idea of food and film seemed good. I reached out to Lia, who at the time had spent 20 years at the Atlantic Film Festival. And she joined us 2 years later when we remounted it in 2011. And that year we doubled our numbers to 2,000. Not only was my restaurant full, but every restaurant was full. Jason Priestley was still kicking around, and Bob Bloomer joined us that year as well too. Kind of strike forward to 2019 last year. We had 15,000 visitors, $1.9 million in economic impact in the region.
Wow.
We had over 100 events, and we've grown to the point where we actually execute in normal years 15 events around the world in addition to our festival here in Wolfville. So we've done events multiple years at Jasper Park Lodge, in the Okanagan, in the Bahamas, California, Sonoma, Berlin. We're working on one for Scotland now for 2021. So we've come a little ways.
We've come a long ways. That's absolutely amazing. And I mean, I think my next question is because programming on a good day is always kind of difficult, but when you're programming with food as the focus, does that create sort of an additional challenge, or does it? Because I mean, I've got to imagine themes would probably come up as you're looking at movies from year to year.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens, actually. I mean, usually we see probably about 300 titles a year of, here comes the pallet jack, of new food films from the global festival circuit and from research. Usually we kind of strike out and sorry, and develop a theme, but we also, obviously from the films, it kind of shows us what it's going to be as well. Each year we've kind of picked the odd thing here and there. So like this year, our secondary theme was climate change. A year before that, I think it was the power of women in gastronomy. So once we nail down our own theme, then we start really looking for content that way as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I guess I would imagine that's how you would structure the sort of the interactive part of the festival as well with all the workshops.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We pull themes right out of films and right into workshops. And, we're always, in terms of like a lot of the culinary presentations that we do, we're always researching the latest chefs and restaurants and things and trying to sort of stay on top of the trends and then put that right into our workshop program as well.
Now, I'm kind of curious, because I mean, film festivals almost in many ways are a bit of a thankless undertaking, and sometimes on a good day. And I'm kind of curious what ultimately got you into sort of the film side of things, not just in terms of programming, but organizing events, because especially these days, it feels even that much more important to do, but it's 10 times harder to actually pull off.
Well, we like to refer to it as a collision of food and film all the time, just because people like to gather and do many things. People like to gather at the movie theater and people like to gather to eat. So it's just another way to bring people together that combines these two separate things. I'm also, I'm a chef who was an actor, and I do believe that the culinary arts are precisely that. It's an art form. And so finding ways to bring something you see on the screen to life and eat it is a very visceral experience. So this whole idea that you can taste the screen, I guess, as it were, is the unique aspect to it that we're finding increasingly more and more common. And what's the expression? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There are many other food film festivals springing up because they've seen our success 10 years in.
Well, and you also see, the struggle that some theaters have had over the years in terms of getting people in the audience, and just like people want an experience. So a lot of our programming is experiential, basically. So always trying to add food at every touch point across the event, whether it's in a workshop form or in a screening, or you're in one of our most popular screenings. The one that we actually take around the world is called Chefs and Shorts, which is a series of 5 to 6 short films where the chefs get them ahead of time, and it inspires the plates that they design for the meal. So basically you're watching a short film, plate hits a table, and times 5. And that one is really translatable, and we've done it all over the world, and it's super popular.
It's one of our signature events that nobody else is really doing that yet. You can go and watch a movie at the Alamo Drafthouse and get a burger, but it's not the films inspiring the food that you're eating. And that's really been a crux for us, having the films inspire cuisine. For example, on our last night this year, our last film is The Truffle Hunters, which has been going around on the film festival circuit. But as you go into the theater, you're going to be given some truffle chips and some truffle cheese to eat while you're watching the movie about truffles. Yep. So the film comes to life because you can breathe it. I always used to think about Sense Around. Did you ever see Earthquake, the old movie?
Yeah.
Where they had Sense Around and you were shaking in the theater? Well, this is what we're trying to do with food. You're just one aspect of the film is coming to life, and you can sense it by eating it and smelling it.
One fun thing. So normally that Chefs and Shorts dinner that we would do, we'd present at a winery here with 150 people at one long harvest table in this beautiful decadent winery with screens. And one of our little pivots this year is to do it at the drive-in. And so there'll be all the shorts on screen, but then everybody gets a snack bag numbered in their cars. So that's one of the examples how we took this event. We were like over here, and now it's just over here. So, yeah.
Well, and that leads into my next question, because I mean, everyone's had to pivot, but at the same time, you guys are very much in a unique position because while you're pivoting, you don't necessarily have to pivot as much as everyone else in the world has had to do. And I'm kind of curious, what other kind of pivots have you been sort of cognizant of, or at least tried to pull off to make sure to make this as an expansive event as you possibly can?
Well, this whole idea of having multiple events, both in person and live, is in itself starting to fuse. So we have live interviews with filmmakers, and the showrunner from Fear the Walking Dead is going to be here in person, but we're streaming that at the same time. So while some festivals have gone all streaming or canceled, we're doing both. We're streaming everything that we're also showing in person. And that's the luckiness of being in the Atlantic bubble right now. We haven't had any COVID cases for weeks, essentially, here in Nova Scotia. So we can still actually get 50 people in to watch a culinary workshop or 45 people in to watch a movie, but you'll be able to stream it at the same time too. That's times 44 events, right, over 5 days that we're doing this for each and every one. So our investment in technology, all of which is very new, right? I mean, all these streaming platforms have really only come to existence in the last 5 or 6 months, other than Netflix, CBC Gem and so on. So this is what we've been trying to do: make sure that everything is available both online and in person. And if things get messed up next week, we call it a sliding scale. We can move this way towards all streaming, or we can move this way towards making sure that we can have people inside.
I mean, once we sort of got over the fact that we weren't going to have large parties or our celebrity chef dinners or our experiential tasting tours, all that sort of stuff went out the window. Now everything is scalable. And we happen to be, in this weird way, producing like one of the larger festivals that'll have presence now than most that we've seen, in probably one of the safest places in the world right now.
We'll still probably sell 5,000 tickets next week, between the various events that we're doing, the film screenings. We're focusing a lot on outdoor events. And in that regard, climate change, which is the theme of our school program this year, has been very good to us because the weather is actually going to be lovely. We were just looking at the forecast. It's going to be 17 degrees here next week. And most of our big events are going to be outside. So we have a great Devour community supper where we raise funds and then give 500 meals to food bank clients, and it's prepared by a local men's cooking club. We're doing the mayor's bike ride for Devour. We try and include a health and wellness activity to sort of counteract all the hedonism and drinking generally.
Yep.
So this idea that we've moved outside as much as possible has been supplemented by the fact that the weather gets better and better every year.
And we've been, all of those are socially distanced. Everyone will have a mask. We actually have a mandatory mask thing here happening in Nova Scotia. So, I mean, we've been doing that for a month, I think, even longer.
How do you guys see sort of this hybrid festival mold going forward? Because, I mean, at least from my perspective, given the state of the world and how everything's going, I think this may be sort of the future of the film festival, not just from a practicality and sort of public safety standpoint, but from the fact that a Zoom call is probably a lot cheaper on the festival than it is to sort of fly in talent to do something.
Yeah.
We are not spending $39,000 on airfares for chefs and filmmakers this year, not $30,000 on hotel rooms, but we still get the wit and witticism of people participating virtually. That's really good. So that's going to change our paradigm as we move forward. Into future years, we probably will stream all our films, right? So that people, if they can't fly to Nova Scotia or don't want to, they can still participate. So in many ways, this is actually allowing us to grow our audience into the future and attract a wider and more diverse global audience, as long as the films aren't geo-blocked.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that other festivals have had to face, like Hot Docs. You couldn't screen anything from Hot Docs outside of Ontario because they were geo-blocked. We managed to secure mostly non-geo-blocked films here. What we did have to do in return is we couldn't show them for a week. We have a set time that you can watch them. So in that regard, we can show them across the country, and that means that we can grow our audience virtually next year, as well as hopefully return to more actual physical in-person activities.
And it's been interesting too, because we always wanted to film and archive our events and do stuff like this. This kind of backed us into a little technology corner, and we have no intention of leaving it. It's now we can actually like keep track of what we're doing year to year.
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel that's got a little bit of content on it, right?
Much.
But now we'll have an entire festivals where the content that will be taped that we can start doing that. So it allows us to expand our social base as well.
Now, for both of you, you've both got backgrounds in film to varying degrees. I'm kind of curious, from a film standpoint, was there a movie or was there a moment sort of in your lives that sort of got you into this business in some way, shape, or form? Like sort of that formative moment for you going, okay, I got to work in film. I've got to do this. This is what I want to do.
Well, that first year before Lia joined, I was very inspired by Big Night and Babette's Feast. And the idea that you could watch this, Babette's Feast is a good example of this slow moving period melodrama, but to create the food from it, right? So that you could actually taste it was an inspiration that I did at my restaurant. So I actually did a Babette's Feast dinner. So that would be the one for me. And of course, who doesn't like Big Night, right?
Big Night's a great film. Yeah.
Yeah, I always struggle with this question. Just because I like so many films for so many different reasons. And I see food moments in films. You know, we did, I think, a Big Lebowski dinner years ago. That's not a food film, but we made it one. I think for me, starting out in film, my excitement, I mean, do you want a food film or just a film moment?
Oh, anything. Yeah.
Okay. I think probably something like With Nail and I would have been a big moment for me. That was when I first started working at a repertory cinema when I was in my teens, and that probably was the first thing that really pulled me in.
Well, and they're always at the kitchen table in that movie anyway, so that's a good bridge.
And my favorite films are always food films anyway through all that period. So yeah.
You can put a food lens on an awful lot of movies if you think about it too. Yeah. Like we showed a film called Happy 140 here a couple of years ago from Spain. And it was a drama, a sort of decline of the American empire comedy style. And it was about death by wine bottle. And we went, it's in, right? It's wine and food. So there was conversations around the dinner table, and that was all of a sudden a good reason to show that film, because they don't all have to be Ratatouille, explicitly about food. If they riff on it or are thematically linked to food or food production or the results of food production, like climate change, can be directly attributable to the growth of food and, confined area feedlot operations. We can bring almost any food into the lens if we want to. So
we've always
changing a perspective,
stretch the niche to fit, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious from your perspectives, because obviously once the world gets a little more back up and running in terms of exhibition, there's going to be challenges to get people just to go watch movies again and have sort of that experiential moment on the big screen. How important do you think something like food will play a factor into that, to be able to have a bit more diversity as opposed to the popcorn and the jujubes that, people are traditionally used to?
I think that's already begun. If you look at the Cineplex's attempt at their sort of super theaters that they've created, I don't know about Victoria and Vancouver, but in Toronto at Yonge and Dundas, they've got this sort of luxury movie theater with a menu so that you can go in and eat. Now, those aren't necessarily tied to the films. It's just food in the theater that's above popcorn.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is to bring it closer together so the food is related to what you're seeing. What's it going to mean for the future of the big cinema and people going to the movies? If they're feeling safe, they will go. Everybody likes a movie on the big screen, right? They really do. We're going to get Zoom fatigue. We're also going to get Netflix TV fatigue sooner or later, right?
Yeah, haven't we all watched all of Netflix now?
So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. But yeah, it's getting people back into the theaters is going to be the work of people like us that show that it can be safe, and the work of the big guys like Cineplex that have to prove that it's a safe environment, knowing that people want to go to the movies. Look at the James Bond thing, right?
Yeah.
They're delaying yet another year to show that movie because they only want to show it in the big screen.
Yeah.
So,
well, it speaks to programming too, right? And just how important that's going to be going forward, sort of in the exhibition business, to be able to get people in the door.
Yeah. Well, for anything, if you look at restaurants, it's the same thing too.
That's true, yeah.
All those places where we gather socially, and look at the two most affected: performing arts or cinema and food. And that's exactly what we do, bringing them together. So it both challenging but opportunistic for the future.
Now, and just to circle back on something, because you guys have some educational programs and some school programs that are a part of Devour. And I'm kind of curious, like, is it focused on sort of food education or about food inequality, or is it just about how to make a proper meal?
The school programs and educational programs are generally thematic each year.
Okay.
So this year, for instance, most of our films have a lens with climate change,
Right.
not so much food, but climate change. So we're actually showing the film The Forum, which is about the World Economic Forum and the decision makers in Davos, how it affects climate change. The reality is every year we have a subject that we try to focus the programming on so that the schools continue to come back year after year after year and watch those movies with curriculum in mind, because we can't force people to watch films unless it fits curriculum, right? The teachers won't want you to be there unless it satisfies one part of their educational and learnings mandates.
Yeah, so this year what we invested in is basically we're streaming into classrooms, and we have provided them with curriculum tools. So they have all these great packages to go with the films. They can, basically milk those for days.
Yeah, so we're showing Generation Greta, about Greta Thunberg, and how these other young women from around the world in various cultures are doing their own degrees of activity related to climate change because they were inspired by Greta Thunberg. So
and it all touches in on food too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now,
everybody relates climate change to food. It's inescapable.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, just to start putting a bow on this, for audiences who don't necessarily know what Devour is about or what the experience is about, what are you hoping audiences pull from this edition, especially this year particularly?
Well, look, the idea that you can participate by not necessarily having to be there is a big leap, right? This was funded originally by Nova Scotia Tourism to attract shoulder season tourism visitation to the province of Nova Scotia. But now our funding is actually from the Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage. We're trying to build communities here.
Yeah.
And we can have a global community that loves food and film and can participate on a global level. We also have culinary schools that have come in the past. From Vancouver, Pika has come with staff and faculty from George Brown in Toronto, so that those students, those culinary students from around the world, have been able to gather here and work with famous chefs like Bourdain when he was here, or Jacques Pepin 2 years ago. It was bringing the world to Nova Scotia. Well, now we get to turn around and do a little bit the other way too. We get to send Nova Scotia out to the world and build a larger global culinary and film community.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And especially these days, community is so important. And I guess just one more question, just to leave you both on. If you had a desert island food film, what would it be?
The one I could watch over and over and over again? Yeah, I could easily watch Big Night Till the Cows Come Home. I really could.
On that one, yeah.
Oh my God.
You got to be prepared for these sorts of questions.
I know, but I never am. I'm so wishy-washy as to why I like something when. What can I watch over and over again? Oh my God. I'm going to throw it out to, one that's so intensely, beautifully art directed. Next Floor by Denis Villeneuve.
Oh,
So
that's a great film.
I could just watch that over and over again.
Beautiful.
I see something different every time.
You'd have a bit of falling complex though if you watched it repeatedly.
Yes, I'd be like, whoa.
Well, you know what? That's it for me then. But thank you again for the time. I appreciate it. And good luck with the fest. Good luck with Devour 9.5.
Thanks. Great
Thanks
pleasure.
so much for your time, too.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.